From the KSL Broadcast House, this is Sunday Edition with Doug Wright.
Good morning and welcome to the program. It's good to be back with you after our coverage of the Olympics. We're broadcasting today from my home in Holiday. We've got a lot to cover. The Biden administration, of course, wants America to build back better, wants to do so with the help of families of faith. How is that going to affect Utah? We'll talk about that a little later on in the program. Plus, there's a new political action committee that is formed here in the state of Utah to represent the tech industries of our state. We'll be talking with the CEO of the new PAC. That too is going to be on Sunday Edition. But I'm very pleased to have some good news. There's a lot of bad news, unfortunately, right now with the pandemic in general and vaccinations. But here in the state of Utah, there are some real success stories, and maybe from some areas you hadn't thought of. And that includes the Shoshone tribe of Utah, and of course in the extended area. And we're very pleased to have one of the tribal leaders joining us on Sunday Edition, Darren Perry. And Darren, welcome to the program. Thanks for being here.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about, first of all, very early on in the pandemic and the vaccination process, we were hearing that for some of the tribes it was difficult. And some of the tribes, I remember some numbers down in San Juan County that were quite distressing. I'm seeing those numbers turning around, not only with the Navajos, but especially with the Shoshone tribe. What has changed? What has happened?
There's a couple of things that have really changed in our world, and we're not surprised by the numbers. One is administratively, we're unique because we're a sovereign nation within a state, within a nation. We have our own health department, we have a health director, and so we administer those programs to our members. So it's smaller. Administratively, it's much easier for us to track. And so we really work hard with our health department and our health director to live a healthy lifestyle. And so he has a good relationship with every tribal member. He knows what they're up to. And we strive hard to make sure that everybody's taken care of. I mean, that's the easy answer. But really, the second reason is because culturally, Native Americans, we have a stewardship over our community. And that's the really thing I really want to emphasize here is we look at our worldview differently than everybody else. You will never hear us say, well, we have a First Amendment right to this. Every action that we do as a tribal member, we take into account what effect it will have on the most vulnerable within our communities. And so it's our stewardship to make sure that our tribal members are taken care of, the elderly especially, and especially those who can't get vaccinated, the youth. And it would be irresponsible for us culturally to not get vaccinated, not do everything in our power to make sure they're taken care of. My grandmother always used to tell me that our communities are only as strong as the most vulnerable within those communities.
Mm-hmm. Darren, perhaps you could give us the actual number. This is really impressive when you consider the state of Utah right now, 12 plus with at least one shot, one part of the vaccine, is at about 65%. I believe the nation right now is at about 59%. So 65 for Utah, 59% for the nation. Tell us the number for the Shoshone tribe.
Well, we met with Governor Cox yesterday, and our vice chairman told him that we're about 95% vaccinated. And those are vaccines that are to people that are eligible. So, you know, we still have youth, we still have our younger children that cannot receive it yet. But all of the adults, and we're at about 95% because we care about our community. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah. This is a sad part of our nation's history that so unfortunately many of our American tribes, North American tribes, have not received perhaps the most truthful interactivity with the federal government. By many, this is perceived, obviously, as a federal effort, a nationwide, and it should be an international-wide effort. And sometimes, again, sadly, our Native American peoples have been led astray on some of the health care information that they have been given. Now, hopefully that's a little ways back in the rearview mirror, but was it difficult to get over some of the mistrust of the federal government and being led astray, sadly, too often?
You would think that would be a problem, and maybe historically years ago it would. But look, we're a tribe that values education. We value science, and so for us, you look at the numbers, you look at what scientists tell us, what our health community tells us to do, and so we trust that. And so for us, it wasn't a big leap. We don't connect the dots from the past. I think what's important for us is how we can be better together moving forward in what we have, the science that we have and everything else. So we're just very grateful that the science has allowed us to get vaccinated and get ahead of this problem. And I just urge everyone to do the right thing for the community. It's not a personal health choice because it's your First Amendment right. It's a choice to take care of our neighbors and take care of our loved ones and take care of the most vulnerable.
I think that's been very frustrating for many of us. And when I was a kid, when the polio vaccine came around, it was like parents were practically going in herds because they saw the devastating effect of polio. I saw it firsthand among friends when I was a little kid, and the vaccination was deemed to be such a God-given gift, a gift of science, a gift from God. And there seems to be such a different attitude this time around. I know Governor Herbert, not all that long ago, in his final months of being governor of the state of Utah, expressed a real concern that this had been politicized. Governor Cox is now calling this an issue, a pandemic of the unvaccinated. You too, right now we're talking with Darren Perry, of course, as a tribal leader of the Shoshone tribe, but recently you too put your toe in the political waters, running for the 1st Congressional District. Perhaps we could end on that note, because the community is all of us in this great nation, in this great land, and on this great earth. What frustrates you the very, very most when you see so many who are so resistant to the vaccination?
You know, it's frustrating. You're right. That's a good word. But I choose to use the word sad, because I really look at it as we're at a sad place in America where we quit putting each other and our needs first. And I think we'd be fine if we'd turn off the TV sometimes and just adhere to the first 2 great commandments, to love our neighbor and love ourselves. And so it's our duty and stewardship to take care of our community. And the best way we can do that is to trust the science, trust our health departments, and get vaccinated and move forward. And I hope we get there. I really do. Mm-hmm. These are my neighbors too.
Darren, I know you're here to represent the Shoshone tribe, obviously, but as you have compared notes with some of the other Native Americans, the other tribes here in the state of Utah, and the Navajo numbers are quite impressive as well. Overall, how are the Native communities doing generally?
Quite well. In fact, way higher than the national average and the state average, because Native Americans, and I'm not talking about just the Shoshones, but Native Americans in general, have a different outlook on our stewardship towards our neighbor and stewardship towards those that we love and are in our communities. And so when you have that worldview, then it makes it easy to make decisions, not based on you and your selfish interests, but based on what you can do to your community to make it better. And Native Americans get it. They understand it.
Darren, I thank you so much for joining us once again on Sunday Edition. I look forward to future conversations, and thank you for sharing all of the good news from the Shoshone tribe, especially with us on Sunday Edition today. Coming up when we come back after a brief break. with someone who is at the helm of a brand new PAC, Political Action Committee for the state of Utah, that will be watching out for the interests of our tech presence in the state. Silicon Slopes, as it is. Stay with us. When it comes to having a presence and influence on Utah's Capitol Hill, many of us who have covered Capitol Hill for a lot of years, we think of the Utah real estate industry, we think of our car dealerships, we think of outdoor advertising, we think of our banking systems, and that list goes on. But nowhere on that list right now is a real large presence from one of the fastest growing industries, and something that in one form or another influences about 1 in 7 jobs in our state, and that's our high-tech industry. We're very pleased to have Sonny Washington joining us right now. A PAC has been put together, a political action committee, to represent the interests and promote the interests of the tech industry here in the state of Utah. Sonny, thank you for spending some time with us here on Sunday Edition, and tell us about this new PAC.
Yeah, so Slopes PAC really stemmed out of my experience working as the public policy chair for Silicon Slopes Commons, which used to be known as Utah Technology Council. And it was very apparent to me with this last legislative session that Silicon Slopes, we certainly had a megaphone, but we didn't necessarily have the influence that we needed to have to make some changes or support some issues that we really felt strongly about. And so that's where it came out that, it seemed like the PAC would be the next best thing for us to build in order to help solidify that influence.
Tell us about the tech industry. We've all been excited about it over these many years now. We've had a company here, company there. We've talked about Facebook. We've talked about Google. We've talked about Micron, and the list just goes on. And even the huge presence out at the point of the mountain from the NSA even. Boy, talk about high tech. But how big an industry is it, especially on the private level, of course, here in the state of Utah?
Yeah, as you alluded to earlier, Doug, we're 1 out of 7 jobs in this state. So we're a fairly big industry. And as you can imagine, tech is not just staying in tech. I mean, restaurants are adopting technology. There are other organizations that are starting to adopt technology. And so we're really seeing a high growth in this area. In total, we contribute nearly $3 billion to the state's economy. And that only continues to grow. And what we hope to accomplish with the PAC and creating our influence is that we can support an ecosystem here that we need to have in order for this growth to be sustainable. I think one of the things that many of us tech entrepreneurs and CEOs have seen is there are parts of the world and parts of this country that have had explosive growth with tech, but they also have some of the worst problems here from unaffordable housing or to social issues and things like that. And we want to avoid that. So we're intentionally, because we love Utah and we love our community, want to make sure that there is a holistic approach to how we grow as tech. We have to think about the infrastructure around us, which also includes our talent, our people, our education. And I hope that that the legislature welcomes our input and insight to that.
As you anticipate the upcoming legislative session, the regular session, it's not all that far away, and many of the big organizations, industries that have considerable clout on Utah's Capitol Hill are already planning what they need to do and what some of their issues are going to be. As you anticipate with this new PAC approaching our legislators on Capitol Hill, what are some of the things that you hope that you can perhaps get them to see the vision of, and perhaps even help solve some of the problems, whether they have occurred yet or you feel them looming ahead?
Sure. So we essentially have 3 pillars that we're focusing on. This includes economic growth and innovation, social and economic mobility, and then also current and future workforce. So those are going to help guide what we decide to get involved in, help decide which candidates we can support or will not support based on those 3 pillars.
You mentioned something that hits very close to home for many of us, whether it's for ourselves, with our kids, grandkids, whatever, or friends that are coming into the state of Utah, the affordable housing. How big an issue will that be for this burgeoning industry in our state? How acute is it?
Well, I think a lot of tech CEOs, me myself, as I've hired people, whether they're from out of state or they live here, is that you want to be able to make sure that they are taken care of at home and that they can afford the housing. Because I think right now, that, like, if we took San Francisco, for example, it's not sustainable. That really takes out a whole bunch of people that can't afford housing, and that's pretty dangerous, I think. And I think that as tech CEOs, we think a lot about our employees and their well-being, and we want to make sure that Utah continues to be this great place for us to raise families and have our kids go to school here and things like that. But I feel like if we don't pay active attention to this, it could be a problem that will be very hard for us to unfix later on.
Sunny, for those who would like to know a little bit more about the PAC, perhaps get a little more information, where do they go? Do you have a website we can use?
Yep, you can go to Slopes PAC, SLOPESPAC.com, or you can email us at info@slopespac.com.
Sunny, we appreciate you joining us here on Sunday Edition. Sunny Washington with us, a brand new PAC that is looking out for the burgeoning tech industry here in the state of Utah. When we return, we're going to talk to Scott Howell, former state senator. He is unknown to many of us in many different capacities, but he was involved in something interesting on a phone call. The Biden administration wants Americans to build back better. What's Utah's role in that, and how will the plan fit into Utah families? That's coming up. Today on Sunday Edition, we wanted to talk about a very special phone call meeting that occurred with the Biden administration. And you've heard President Biden and others within the administration itself talking about not just building back, but building back better. And what roles will there be in that process? And from people with a faith-based background, families, of course, and someone that was on that phone call with the Biden administration from the state of Utah, just one of the individuals from our state was Scott Howell. And Scott, I was thinking of the many times we have chatted, the many ways I've introduced you, from state senator, minority leader. I think of the time you were candidate for the U.S. Senate with the Pioneer Park Coalition, of course, Debate Commission, your work with the Other Side Academy, and I so appreciate you taking time to join us today here on Sunday Edition to talk about the phone call that you were on. Tell us a little bit about it, its genesis, and who was involved. I understand that Ben McAdams from Utah was also on the call.
He was, Doug, and thank you again for having me on. It was a very interesting call. It was organized for faith-based groups throughout the state of Utah, and there was a plethora of individuals on it. And some of our keynote speakers were Utahns who have actually participated in some way or another on the Biden Build Back plan. Ben gave a very good overview of the plan. He's been working with the administration on it. We had a Mr. Gibbs who actually was a recipient of some of the benefits even before the plan has been fully implemented, who had a kidney transplant. Dina Blaze from Salt Lake County, who's administrating a lot of these funds, these Build Back America funds. And Darlene McDonald, a single woman that moved to Utah years ago with her family because, quote, she recognized family values of Utah. And, you know, we've always been known as a state of family friendly. And I'll never forget one time when I was meeting with Elder Ballard on some issues, and I got up to leave, and he said, Scott, you know, wouldn't it be great if on Capitol Hill, on each piece of legislation, someone would direct the message and say, what does this do to families? Does it help families? And I so appreciated his comments because we kind of adopted the thing with President Beatty, a theme at that time with President Beatty, that we would put families first on all of our policy initiatives. And I think on the Biden plan, it really is focused on pre-K child tax credit, community college, and expanded the Pell Grants. And this is an opportunity to recover from the COVID crisis by improving equity and boosting the working and middle class. You know, President Biden has said this for years and years: middle out, bottom up, fighting for all. And I want to emphasize this plan is really to help young adults, including many of those viewers today, this very Sunday morning, get launched in life and start having fighting start in their careers and their place in our society.
There's so many things that are afoot right now to try to bring us back on various levels: medical, everything else, vaccination, economy. As you listen to the comments on the phone call, where do you see the most hope? And I know, for example, Senator Romney has been very enthusiastic about spreading out the tax benefits throughout the year rather than getting a refund at the end of your tax or when you file your taxes. In just the minute and a half maybe that we have remaining, what are the high hopes that you have for this plan?
Well, I really appreciate the bipartisan and the leadership of Senator Romney to significantly expand the child tax credit and deliver it monthly. A real good example of this is the plan will extend the benefits from $2,000 to $3,000 per child 6 years and above, and $3,600 per child under 6. Parents can take and use this tax credit on everything from diapers to putting more food on the table to paying rent or mortgage. And for a family with two parents who earn a combined $100,000 per year and have two children under 6, the child tax credit expansion means the family's credit would go from $4,000 to $7,200, an additional $3,200 a year in tax relief. And for a family of two parents who earn a combined income of $24,000, it actually expands up to $4,000 per child. So I love that aspect of it. And the other aspect that's really important to me is dealing with intergenerational poverty. And that's an issue that our own county councilwoman, Amy Winder-Newton, on her own prerogative, has been working on it. And the plan matches almost exactly the Biden plan. And I can see great hope for bipartisanship on this bill. And I think those are probably the other thing that is really fascinating to me, being a grandfather now, is the pre-K and the child tax care that would help families with children where both parents work. And hey, my own family has experienced this on the increase in cost on child care, and I think that guaranteed access, high quality, a universal free preschool to 3 and 4 year olds really will start to make a difference. And that's where our own Congressman McAdams is so well versed on the subject, and he's going to be a key part on this on the initialization of the plan.
Scott, it's always a pleasure to have you on Sunday Edition. I wish we had more time. We'll look forward to more conversations about this, and music and the spoken word is coming up next. Thanks for joining us.